Now that we've gone through the process of making prefabs a little, let's do it again. Let's make a couple more prefabs out of some of our existing objects. For example, let's take our spring and make that into a prefab so that we can place multiple springs and have them work the same way. And then if we want to make any changes to them later, we can. Or if we want to use them across different scenes or levels, like we will do, we'll be able to do that as well. So first thing we're going to do is rename our spring. I'm going to go select it, rename it with F2, go up here and type S with a capital S, just replacing that lowercase s with a capital one. Then I'll take the spring and drag it down into my prefabs folder. Now I've got my spring here as a prefab, and I've got it down here in the prefabs folder available to drag out here. So I'm going to drag a spring, let's say right up here. Maybe drop it right on top of this platform here. I'm going to even out or level out my position to a 3. I just like to go in and type out the exact position. And here I think I'm going to go to like a 7.5 and go a little bit to the left there so that it's perfectly lined up with the edge. And I've got a spring there on the edge. I'm going to move some of these platforms around so I've got a little bit more space. I'll hold control and just drag that guy over here. And I think I'm going to drag this one maybe way over to the right. I'm going to also increase the size of my background. I mentioned that we could just adjust this tiling size. So let's double it. And instead of figuring out the number that's double, which is 160, I'm going to type in the formula for it. In fact, let's triple the size instead, just to make it a little bit harder. To do that, we'll go to the end of the width here, which is 80. I'm going to put a star, which is the key for multiplication, or the character for multiplication, and then a 3. And then look at that, it already got wider. If I hit enter, it'll calculate it out and give me a 240. Just a cool little thing that you can do in any of the calculated fields. For small numbers like that, it maybe isn't as useful to you, but for bigger stuff, I found that it can be pretty handy if I need to especially divide things by pi or whatever, some other weird stuff like that. So here we go. I've got my nice wide background, and now I want to add a little bit more water and maybe some more obstacles, but I don't want to just duplicate this water. Again, I kind of want to have a prefab for this. And here I've got some options. I've got to decide, do I make the water on the bottom be part of the prefab, or do I just have the top part be the prefab? And in this situation, my general thought is that I want to take my water that's the bottom of this object and make it kind of all be one thing. I don't like having multiple objects that I have to place. If I need to do them differently and modify them, I can modify this prefab once it's placed or hide this part or something. But generally, I'm going to have visible water below my top water, so I'm going to make this be a child of the top water. So that might sound a little bit confusing, but all you really need to do is click on this water. Let's rename this to water bottom with a capital W and a capital B because we want to have nice clean names. And let's go to the top part and name this water. This is the water that's the top. It's the top part is now just named water. We're going to take water bottom, make it a child of water. In fact, let's rename water to be, no, let's not rename it to be water top. We'll just name it, we'll leave it as water. So now we've got water with water bottom, and we're going to turn this water object with its child into a prefab. To do that, we'll take the water, drag it into our prefabs folder again into the empty space, and ta-da, we've got another water prefab, or another prefab. Now we're going to duplicate this water. And we're going to see something really cool that prefabs allow us to do. We're going to take this water, we're going to duplicate it, Control D. So I selected it, Control or Command D. I have two water objects. If I hold Control and drag with the red arrow, I can see my second water. It was just stacked right on top of the other one. And I'm going to drag it right over here so that it snaps right in line with my ground. Now, if your ground isn't snapping in line, then make sure that this is at a snapped position, not a decimal point there, or at a 0.5 maybe. And then you have your values right like this. You've got a solid number here or a whole number there. All right, so let's go take a look at it. If I unselect, you see that I've got my water here, but I still have this ugly line here where I'm not seeing any grass. I don't see that background view at all, and I think it looks pretty terrible. Let's hit play and see what it looks like in game though. I want to make sure that I'm not crazy and it actually looks terrible. But we should be getting kind of that, we get the sky blue there. And that doesn't make any sense. Kind of ruins the water effect, makes it look messed up. So I want to fix that. Let's stop playing again. and go select our original water, the one that we had here, and let's fix the problem. To fix it, I want to add something in the background that kind of matches our background of our level. And we've got really a couple of ways that we could do this. I could add a sprite onto here. In fact, this is what we will do. We'll go to 2D object, go to sprites, and go to square. And now I've got a background square object. Look at this a little bit better. You can see that I've got this square kind of sitting back there behind the water. Now, if I change the color of this with the eyedropper and go pick the same color as my background, now it just kind of blends in. And I could, of course, just adjust the size of this by hitting tiled mode, and then changing the tiling out to be the same size as my water. Now I've got a background that shows up and kind of looks a little bit better, but there are a couple of issues. First, let's rename the square to grass background. I'll call this grass background, and let's change this. Oh, actually, we don't want to do anything with the full rect mode. We just want to save. So now let's go look at our other water. Oh, look at that. Our other water does not have this grass background. We don't see that, and it's, we've got it here. It looks like it's probably going to be okay, but on the other one, it looks like it's going to be messed up. In fact, let's go play, make sure that it looks right before we try to get this to apply to all of our ground or all of our waters. So we come over here, and it looks okay. Look at that. I can kind of bounce in front of it. Looking good, and I can jump over here. And you can see this one's still messed up. So let's stop playing and see how we can fix this. So since I've made changes to this water prefab, you notice that there's a little green plus here. This green plus means that I've added something to the prefab on this version of it, or this object that's placed. This water down here, the one that doesn't have that, notice it doesn't have the green plus, doesn't have this other gray part either, the grass background. And also notice that this part's gray. That's because it's not part of the prefab, this grass background here. So what we need to do is go to the override section of our water. So select the water here, the one that we've added the new background to. Let's just go double click it again. Go to overrides, and here you can see we've got the same little highlight, the plus, saying that we've added a grass background. That's what the plus means. And then we just hit the apply all, and this is going to apply the changes to our water prefab. Watch what happens. I hit apply all, and look at the other water here. It now has a grass background, and if I zoom out, you'll see that it's got this background showing up. Now I'm going to save my scene and press play again. I want to run around and just make sure that everything looks okay. And then I want to show you one more minor thing that I'd like to change before we commit. So run over here and look at that. We can kind of bounce around. Everything looks okay. Let's go to the next one. It looks good. Okay, cool. But now there's one issue that you might have run into, and I want to show it to you because if you have, it could be a little bit confusing. If you're looking at your grass background, your sorting layer could be set to water right now. And if it is set to water, look what happens to your player. Your character shows up behind the grass, and it looks very, very strange. We don't really want it set to water. If it's set to default, it'll show up okay, because that's behind the player. But really, we want this grass to be in the background. We want to set that to the background layer. So I'm going to stop playing, and we're going to make this change to our object again. This time we'll do it on the second water object. Instead of the first water, let's go to the grass background of the second object. We'll change the sorting layer to be background, and then we'll go to the root object of it, this water, the parent, and go to overrides. Here you'll see that it now says we have a change. It doesn't say we have a plus, just a change, and it's saying that something is modified in our sprite renderer. If I click the little eye there, I'll get a pop-up that shows me exactly what. Let's see if I can drag this over and give you a nice preview of that. So click the eye, and we can get a preview showing what has changed, and it's still a little bit off screen, so we're going to drag this way over. We'll hit overrides and hit this. So what we're seeing here is the original version of the prefab and then what we've done to change it. And you can see what's changed. And it doesn't do a great job of calling out everything that's changed, but you can tell right here with the bold text. It's just the bold text isn't very bold, so it's not the most obvious thing. But we changed the sorting layer. That's why this is bolded and everything else is that default. Now I just need to hit the apply button and hit apply to prefab water. Drag my window back out so you can see it again. And then let's go check out our other water. Our other grass background is also set to background layer now. I'm going to go to plastic SCM, and now I'm going to say that we've added a spring and water prefabs. And we'll check in our changes. Oh, we got to make sure let's hit cancel, save the scene, and now check in our changes.